My dear friends, let me ask you something personal. Have you ever felt that deep down you just aren't good enough? Have you looked in the mirror or at your life and thought, I'm inferior, I don't measure up? If you have, you're not alone. In fact, to be human means to feel inferior at times. Yes, every single one of us, even the greatest names in history, has felt that pang of self-doubt. But I'm here today to tell you that this feeling, this so-called inferiority complex, does not have to hold you back. On the contrary, it can become the very force that propels you forward toward a life of confidence and significance. I speak to you not just as a psychologist, but as someone who lived through those very feelings. As a child, I was frail and sickly. I suffered from rickets, and at age 5, I nearly died of pneumonia. Imagine a little boy, weak and helpless, watching other children run and play while he could only sit on the sidelines. That boy was me, Alfred Adler, and I know what it is to feel small, to feel less than others. I remember deciding at that tender age that I would not let these weaknesses define me. I chose a goal. I resolved to become a doctor so I could help others and overcome my own frailty. That simple decision lit a spark of purpose in me that kept me going through every hardship. And it was in overcoming those childhood struggles that I discovered one of the great truths of life. Our weaknesses can be the starting point of our strengths. The greater the feeling of inferiority that has been experienced, the more powerful is the urge to conquest, I once wrote. In other words, the more inadequate you feel, the stronger your drive can be to overcome it, if you choose to embrace that drive. Think of some of the most successful people you know. Many of them started with huge disadvantages or feelings of inadequacy. Take Theodore Roosevelt, for example. As a boy, he was asthmatic, weak, constantly ill, an unlikely candidate for greatness. But young Teddy refused to accept defeat. He began exercising vigorously, determined to strengthen his body. Over the years, that scrawny, sick boy transformed into a robust, adventurous man who became President of the United States. How does someone so sickly become so vigorous and successful? It happens when you use your inferiority as fuel for improvement rather than a reason to quit. You see, feeling inferior is not in itself a problem. It is a natural part of life. Every child is born utterly dependent, surrounded by bigger, stronger adults. So from our earliest moments, we feel a felt minus, a sense of being less or lacking. And this feeling sparks a desire to reach a perceived plus, to grow, to achieve, to close the gap. alfredadler.org, alfredadler.org. This is the engine of human progress. Normal feelings of inferiority spur us to learn, to improve, to strive for something better. If I feel uneducated, I study. If I feel physically weak, I train my body. If I feel socially awkward, I push myself to develop friendships. In this way, each step from inferiority can lead to a step upward in personal growth. However, there's a catch. If those feelings of inferiority overwhelm us, or we misinterpret them, they can morph into an inferiority complex, a persistent belief that, I am not as good as others, I will never succeed. That mindset is like a poison. It drains your courage. It whispers lies that nothing you do will matter, so why even try? With an inferiority complex, a person might stop striving and instead sink into despair or apathy. They might hide away, avoiding challenges for fear of failure. Some even develop a superiority complex as a mask, boasting, bullying, or seeking to dominate others to cover up their inner insecurity. But let me assure you, neither hiding nor pretending to be superior will truly heal those feelings inside. The only true antidote to inferiority feelings is courageous self-improvement and contribution. I want each of you to consider this. What if your feelings of inferiority are actually a signal, a message telling you where you need to grow next. Instead of seeing it as proof of failure, see it as an invitation. Do you feel unintelligent? Perhaps life is inviting you to learn, to take a class, read some books, ask questions, and expand your mind. Do you feel unattractive or unhealthy? Perhaps it's an invitation to care for your body, to develop your style, to exercise and bring out your vitality. Do you feel shy and insignificant? That might be a nudge to work on your communication skills, to reach out to someone, to practice expressing yourself. You can improve in each of these areas step by step, and as you do, that old feeling of inferiority will begin to shrink. Now, I don't say this lightly. Taking those steps can be scary. When I was a student, there was a subject that initially terrified me: mathematics. I once lagged far behind a brilliant classmate in math, and I felt stupid. But rather than accept that I was just stupid, I took it as a challenge. I devoted myself to practice. I studied tirelessly, asked for help, and worked on problems every day. By the end of the year, I surpassed that classmate's grades. I tell you this not to boast. After all, I started at the bottom, but to illustrate that effort and courage can triumph over the initial feeling of inferiority. What changed was not that I suddenly became a genius. What changed was my mindset and determination to improve. I turned "I can't" into "I will learn how." You can do this too. Every skill is learnable. Every strength can be developed. The feelings of inferiority you carry are not facts. They are simply your psyche urging you to grow in some way. Once you see this, you can almost get excited when you notice an inferiority feeling, because you know it's pointing you to your next area of growth. It's like an internal compass guiding you toward your personal development. Now let's address something important: worth. Many people equate their self-worth with their achievements or traits. They think, if I'm not as successful or as attractive or as smart as so-and-so, I must be worth less. This is a tragic misunderstanding. I want you to burn this into your mind. Your worth as a person is absolute and unchanging. You are worthy of respect and love simply because you are a human being, a unique individual with your own gifts. When we talk about overcoming inferiority, we are not trying to become more worthy. You already have worth. We are trying to express our potential, to develop our abilities so that we can experience that worth and share our gifts with the world. Imagine you have a locked treasure chest inside you, filled with talents, ideas, and goodness. If you feel inferior, it's as if that chest is locked tight, making you believe there's nothing valuable inside. But as you challenge yourself and grow, you find the key to that chest. You open it and start to see glimmers of treasure. Maybe you discover you're a caring friend, or you have a knack for music, or a talent at repairing things, or a heart for helping others. Bit by bit, your confidence grows as you recognize these strengths. The treasure was always there, but now you're finally bringing it into the light. Sometimes it helps to look at those who traveled this journey before us. Consider Oprah Winfrey, born into poverty in an era of discrimination and a victim of abuse in her childhood. She grew up feeling unwanted and inferior, but Oprah did not let that define her. She decided that her future could be different from her past. Through education, relentless hard work, and an unshakable belief in her own worth and vision, she rose to become one of the most influential women in the world. She has openly talked about how her early hardships fueled her empathy and drive. Oprah turned her pain into power and her feeling of inferiority into a mission to uplift herself and millions of others. Her story shows that it does not matter where you start, it matters where you decide to go. Another example, Nelson Mandela. As a young man in apartheid South Africa, every message from society was that he was less than because of his race. He could easily have internalized a permanent inferiority complex. Instead, he cultivated a strong sense of dignity and purpose, the purpose to free his people from injustice. Even 27 years in prison did not break his spirit or make him see himself as inferior. Upon release, he led his nation with wisdom and compassion. Mandela once said, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." I would add, courage is also the triumph over inferiority feelings, the refusal to let any circumstance demean your sense of self. Mandela's life teaches us that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Keep your consent to yourself and use feelings of adversity to strengthen your resolve. So how do we begin this transformation within ourselves, here and now? Allow me to give you some practical steps to turn self-doubt into self-worth. Acknowledge your feelings without judgment. It's okay to feel inferior sometimes. Say to yourself, "I feel less in this area, and that's all right." Recognize it as a feeling, not an unchangeable truth. When you acknowledge it calmly, you take away some of its power. Identify the source of the inferiority. In what area do you feel not enough? Is it in your career, your relationships, your skills, your appearance? Be specific. You can't address a vague cloud of self-doubt. You must name it to tame it. Reframe it as a goal for growth. Whatever you named, put the word "yet" at the end of your worry. I'm not good at public speaking yet. This implies you can improve. Now, set a small goal to begin improving in that area. If it's public speaking, maybe the goal is, "I will speak up in the next meeting," or "I'll join a local Toastmasters club." If you feel socially awkward, maybe "I'll ask one coworker to lunch this week." If you feel physically weak, maybe "I'll start walking 20 minutes each day." Turn your inferiority into a to-do list for growth. Recall past victories. This isn't the first time you felt challenged. Think of something you once struggled in, but later succeeded. Perhaps as a child, you thought you'd never learn to ride a bike, but you did. Or you overcame a tough class in school. Or you once felt lonely in a new city until you made a friend. Remind yourself that you've overcome challenges before. Those are proofs that you can do it again. Let those memories encourage you when doubt creeps in. Stop the comparison game. Nothing fuels inferiority like constantly measuring yourself against others. Remember, you usually compare your worst to their best. In truth, everyone has strengths and weaknesses. Focus on your progress relative to yourself. Are you a little better today than yesterday? That's a win. As the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. I urge you to quit stealing your own joy. Celebrate your unique journey. Contribute to others. This might surprise you, but one of the fastest ways to forget your perceived flaws is to help someone else with kindness. When you volunteer, assist a friend, or share your knowledge, you start to realize you have value to give. Your focus shifts from "what's wrong with me" to "how can I make a difference?" And in making a difference, you affirm your worth. I've observed time and again, when individuals engage in acts of social interest, their self-esteem blossoms. Surround yourself with encouragement. Seek friends, mentors, or supportive communities that uplift you rather than tear you down. Limit exposure to those who constantly criticize or belittle you, including negative media or toxic social media that triggers inadequacy. Fill your environment with positive voices. Even reading biographies or watching talks of inspiring figures can serve as a virtual support team cheering you on. Practice self-compassion. Be gentle with yourself. Speak to yourself as you would to a dear friend. If a friend failed an exam or lost a job, would you call them hopeless? Of course not. You'd encourage them, highlight their strengths, remind them this is just a setback. Do the same for yourself. Whenever the harsh inner critic starts, counter it with a kind, understanding voice. You deserve your own respect and encouragement. These steps, practiced consistently, will start to change the way you feel about yourself. It won't happen all at once. It's a gradual shift. You'll notice that what once felt impossible or terrifying will begin to feel doable, even exciting. That's the sign of your confidence growing, of inferiority loosening its grip. I want to highlight something crucial: courage. Everything I've outlined requires courage. Courage to try, courage to fail, courage to stand up again. But here's a secret. Courage isn't something you either have or don't have. It's a choice, a willingness to take a step forward even while feeling unsure. When I overcame my struggles, when Roosevelt built his strength, when Oprah rose above her past, none of us knew for sure we would succeed. We simply decided to act in spite of our doubts. That's courage. And every time you act with courage, no matter how small the act, you build a bit more confidence. You prove to yourself, hey, I can do this. Remember, all living requires risk-taking. To live is to step into uncertainty at times. If we hide away trying to avoid all risk, we avoid truly living. Yes, you might stumble as you work on your weaknesses, but you will also grow. It's okay to stumble. I'd rather see you stumble forward than stay stuck in place. Give yourself permission to be imperfect, but in progress. Let me tell you, one of the most beautiful sights I've seen in my years of work was watching individuals who once believed I am nothing start to realize I am something, and that something can become someone great. The shy client who believed he had no social skills ends up leading a community group, laughing and connecting. The young woman who felt ugly and unworthy of love discovers her confidence, and her eyes start shining with self-respect. Soon she finds people in her life who appreciate her for who she is. These transformations are real. I've seen them, and they fill my heart with joy every time. And if they can do it, so can you. You are no different. You have talents you haven't discovered yet. You have strengths waiting to be developed. The very fact that you feel inferiority strongly means you have an equally strong capacity for striving and growth, two sides of the same coin. Today, as I stand here, I want you to make a new decision. The next time that voice in your head says, "You're not good enough," I want you to answer back loudly, "I am good enough to try." You don't have to be perfect. You just need to start. Prove that voice wrong by taking action. Each small victory, each chapter read, each jog around the block, each conversation started, each skill learned will be like a brick building a fortress of self-worth. Over time, you'll look back and be astonished at how far you've come, how strong you've become. I began this talk by acknowledging that we all feel inferior at times, but I will close it by affirming this. Within each of us is the power to rise above those feelings. No one is condemned to a life of inferiority unless they surrender to it. You have a choice. Right here, right now, you can choose to see yourself not as less than, but as on the way to greatness. Take it from that weak little boy who became a doctor and a psychologist, the boy who ended up helping countless others find their worth. I turned my inferiority into inspiration. You can turn your self-doubt into self-improvement and ultimately into self-confidence. My dear friends, you are enough. You always have been. It's time to believe it, act on it, and experience the incredible transformation that belief will bring. Step out of the shadow of inferiority and into the light of your true potential. I promise you, your future self will thank you for the courage you show today.